to talk about public interest law and finding resources for public interest attorneys on Lexis. Now, here's the thing about public interest law. You need to be an expert at everything, right? And we can't possibly do that. So public interest law dives into several different areas of law on a daily basis even. And what is most important, that you can find material on areas of law that you may not be experts at quickly and easily, right? So let's get started. I'm going to show you a few tricks you can use to find things quickly. One of the things you're going to need to do often is find specific state materials. So one of the ways we can do that is skip the search box at the top of the screen and come on down through Explore to the state and then Hawaii. Now here's where you can see all the resources for Hawaii law. You can see that I can already start narrowing and run some searches in case law here, but typically if I'm going to just look for cases, I'll use the search bar on the main screen. I like to come down here for the statutes and legislation box and then administrative materials. Now, if you look here, this is where we've got the Hawaii statute. So immediately I can see that this is the Hawaii revised statutes listed here. Federal and state court rules are available, municipal codes, the Hawaii Constitution. And then if I need to do some bill tracking, I've got that information here too. Below that, you'll see that there are agency materials listed here. So I've got administrative rules, the Attorney General opinions, specific public utilities, and workers' comp decisions, and this is where I would find tax materials for the state of Hawaii, and that's basically how you use this database. So coming on in further, let's take a look at these municipal codes. Okay, so a lot of these databases, you need to expand plus signs to see it. We don't have a lot of counties listed for Hawaii, but when we do, you can either search in the box here or, of course, open up plus signs. So if I type dog bite, then I'm searching all of the material that we have for municipal codes that have to do with dog bites, and you're starting to see some of those appear here where we've got animal control, the definitions, and we're starting to see some of the materials that we've got on local ordinances. Okay, so what I also have below administrative materials and those legislation is case-related materials like briefs, pleadings, and motions. Now, these are real briefs, pleadings, and motions that have been filed with the court. And the great thing about this database is we can use these type of pleadings and motions that have been filed with Hawaii courts as a template. And we're going to have a lot of chances to see how to find specific templates on Lexis. But a lot of times you won't be able to find specific templates for Hawaii. So you can go into some of these templates that we have for other states and then open up a brief pleading or motion, anything to help you understand the nuances of a Hawaii law that you can change and bring to that template that you're working on that might be from another state. So these are real filings that we can see how other people have done it and use between this and some of the templates that we have available on a particular issue or action. You can have everything you need to start writing. Jury instructions. These are real jury instructions that the jury deliberates on, and this can be really handy to help you understand the elements of specific legal issues that juries would deliberate on. So it's a nice way to quickly get exactly what the elements are for each legal issue coming before the juries. Okay, jury verdicts and settlements are something that we use to help us understand damages. So we can see what juries' verdicts have come back, what settlements are, and start to assess our own damages that way. Now, also on this page, you will start to see some secondary materials. And generally for states, you'll have a lot of secondary materials listed for state treatises, but we just don't have a lot for the state of Hawaii. So when we don't have a lot of treatises for Hawaii, I can come back up to the top and we can try another place. So rather than looking in the state of Hawaii, I can come on into my practice area. And for each of these practice areas, I'm going to get the specific secondary sources that Lexis recommends. So we're going to go into civil procedure, and you'll see here that if I scroll down, it's set up very similarly to the screen that we just saw for Hawaii. But now we've got a lot more secondary materials coming forward that have to do with civil procedure. A big favorite of mine are these top secondary sources here, because you can immediately start to see what are the biggest, most used resources for a particular area of law. And if public interest attorneys need to quickly, figure out which are the resources that are going to be most helpful that others use all the time, and these are them. So Moore's Federal Practice will help you with all civil procedure issues for federal law. And we also have this Wagstaff practice guide for pretrial motions. Now, these are really effective because when I come on into this Wagstaff, you're going to start to see, just like we saw before for the municipalities when we search dog bite, now I've got a lot more here and I can drill down by using these plus signs or of course run a search. I'm going to drill down and we're going to open up winning with motions. And then I'm going to take a look a little bit further into default motions for default. Now, when you see the book starting to open up, of course, I can dive into any of these, but I actually like to go straight to the synopsis of the chapter. That way I can see what's going on, because most of the time I'm going to need a few pages from this particular chapter if I'm working on a motion for default. And now I've got all the different components that I need right here at my fingertips, and I can keep coming back to this page. Once I'm ready to go in, I can click. And you'll see this Wagstaff practice guide is actually pretty cool, because not only will you get the information that you need right here on the screen, but you're oftentimes going to get a video that discusses it as well. So if you're one of those auditory learners and things go better when you hear about it in a video, we've got that for you. But of course, if I scroll on down, then I'm starting to get the content to tell me all about the motions for default and the different types available for me. Okay, we'll go back to the main screen now. And this time, let's take a look at when we run a search. So I'm just going to run a search, unrepresented employee and picket line. So I have an issue of an unrepresented employee and picket line. We're putting our terms in, and now I'm ready to run a search on Lexis. So when I need secondary materials, one way to do that, of course, is to come down to secondary materials and find treatises this way. So I do encourage you to come to treatises when you have some available, which we do. But if you want to start to take a look at some of these CLEs, these are going to help you with some of the really trendy issues of law. So if you need something that's more cutting edge, you might find it in one of these. But of course, your main go-to is usually treatises. So one way to find treatises is how I just showed you through the Explorer, and we can go in by practice area. But the other way is just to run a search, go into secondary materials, treatises, and guides, and now I can start to see what's populating for this particular search that I run. And you can even see that my terms are color coded, and I can even jump around to see what my terms are right here on the screen. Attorneys love this feature because they don't need to open up the secondary source to try to figure out if this is going to be something that's helpful to them. And if it looks helpful, then of course they can open it up and come on in and take a further look at it. Once I'm in a particular page, I like to make sure, again, that I've got my table of contents available to me so I can move around. So there's different ways that I use a source. Once I find where I need to be, I make sure that I'm getting everything I need from that particular book by using this table of contents for me. And then I can also search my terms by jumping down and clicking and diving down and finding those terms on the page. So if I'm just really looking for picket line right now, then of course I can unclick those other ones and jump down and get to the 7 times that my document is mentioning the word picket line. Okay, and let's go back up to the top and we'll try something else. Another common thing that you'll need to do is you'll have a particular motion or some sort of document that you need to draft. You know what the name of it is, so we're just going to type it in and see if we can find some sort of template we can use to create that document that you need to draft. So I typed in temporary restraining order, and a great place to go for documents that you need to draft are your practical guidance database. So when you're seeing there's a lot of materials populating, you know, okay, there's some good stuff in practical guidance. I'm going to take a look and see what temporary restraining orders Lexis is suggesting to me. I'm going to come on in. And now I've got the options to decide if I want to search in practical guidance practice notes, which help tell me a little bit more about the law of temporary restraining orders, or go straight to those templates. So I'm going to click templates now. And when I start scrolling down, you can start to see here very specific state temporary restraining orders that I can use. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that if I'm using something from the state of Texas, then I can always mesh it with some sort of motion or a document that I'm finding that's really been filed with the state of Hawaii and try to mash up the two so I can get exactly what I need that have any Hawaii nuances. So that's one way that I can find documents to draft by just typing it in the name here. Now, sometimes if I'm looking for something where I need just a clause, then I can type in the terms that I'm looking for a clause. If I need a clause that talks about temporary restraining and not an entire document, I've even got a clause database here. Or, of course, I can go into those templates and look to see how those particular clauses have been laid out that have my terms in them. Okay, now sometimes things go awry and we don't have what you're looking for, right? So here we've got something, it's a very common form that would need to be filed if we have an indigent client and they can't afford representation. You can file an informa pauperis document. But I actually had trouble finding these immediately when I went out to practical guidance. So this was obviously the first place I went, and I am seeing some documents come up, but they didn't seem that helpful. So the next place I can go is I can come on down and you'll see that Lexis actually has sample forms here as well. So the nice thing about coming to these sample forms is even if Lexis doesn't really have a lot of forms for you, Lexis will go ahead and pull different motions from other places it has on the system and provide you with as much as it can provide you. And you can see here is a motion for leave to proceed for an informa pauperis and the affidavit for the accompanying order. So we are getting documents here that are helpful to understand how to file this document, and we can go on in and come from here to try to create the document we're looking for. So if you're not finding what you need in practical guidance, remember that there's also a forms database on Lexis as well. And the easiest way to go about doing it is run your search and then, of course, go to sample forms and you'll see that populate. Okay, finally, let's check out something new on Lexis, which is the fact and issue finder. Just know that you guys are with your law school ID, so you have very specific things populating here on this little menu on the right hand side that are just for law students, and the attorneys don't see it, but that causes the fact and issue finder that I want to show you to be on the view all. So I actually had to click that button, view all, and there's the fact and issue finder. Now attorneys are finding this really helpful because it brings together all the materials they need for a particular area of law that they might be litigating. And we've started with some of the most heavily litigated areas of law to add to this fact and issue finder. So let's look at real estate law if we've got an issue regarding landlord tenants. If I don't like what's being shown to me here in these options of topics, I can always type in my topic here and look through it through Lexis this way. But if I need landlord tenant, I can see it here, and Lexis will immediately go and bring up all the different things we have on landlord tenant law. And immediately we can start to see how these cases are being laid out. So these are some of the popular landlord tenant laws, and of course I can narrow by my jurisdiction, but you can see what Lexis is doing is bringing together the other databases right here. So as you're seeing the cases that you may need, it's also saying, hey, if you need this case, you're probably going to need this statute as well. If you need this case, here are some briefs that have filed using that case, and here's some statutes. So it's trying to pull together all the different areas of Lexis in one shot so you can get everything you need all in just a couple clicks. So it's organizing your whole case management from one particular issue, which is for us landlord tenant. Of course, like I said, I could be more specific and filter down, and I can be more specific with my terms as well and narrow. So we've just dropped down and you can start to see here's some cases that are suggested to me. And then of course, with this particular case, it's on a current docket on the courts now, other briefs, pleadings and motions and statutes that are discussing this particular case. All right, back on the main screen to wrap up, I want to make sure you know that under content, we have a database called public records. A lot of you know that Lexis has public records and it's used heavily by public interest attorneys. I am not going to go into it now because we need to have a specific legal purpose to go in. Now, you can always go and search yourself, but unless you are doing work for a particular client, maybe while you're in school, you're doing some clinical work, you will not be going into public records unless, again, it's just yourself. So when you have that legitimate purpose, then you can come in and search public records. It's really easy to do. And when that day comes, if you're a student, you can come reach out and I will help you search public records. But please know that public records is a big database used by public interest attorneys. Thanks, guys, for watching.